Hello everyone and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday the 29th of August 2022, at the end of August already. Where is the year going? Man oh man. It's Gary here again and well, you know what a tremendous week we enjoyed and what already feels like a season that could maybe be enjoyed at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, such is the roller coaster we've been on in just this past 4 weeks. I mean, that's all it's been. It's 4 weeks. Wow. How amazing is it to finally be back in the UEFA Champions League proper with an absolute Giovanni Van Bronckhorst masterclass in Holland last week. Thoroughly well done and well deserved by everyone involved. And more about the game in the game segment in a wee bit here. But speaking of roller coasters, another drama contributor as we were gearing up for the game in Eindhoven last week was the, I guess you could say, somewhat sensational news around Alfredo Morelos being dropped completely from the squad and not even travelling to Holland as a result of his fitness and attitude challenges that he had been displaying. Now, firstly, I know I don't need to tell you this, but this isn't the first time that we've experienced this side of Alfie. And the first time that I can recall this type of situation was when that offer from some Chinese club came in a few years back, around about the January window, the January transfer window time frame, and Rangers had knocked it back at the time. And then Alfredo took the huff for the next few months and kind of almost down the tools. Not completely, but it wasn't far off. But then when Steven Gerrard came in, it was apparent that he and Gerrard did have a close relationship, and he got a wee bit of leeway and such. So, you know, as such was his importance to the team at that particular time. And I think the thing that is slightly different now is probably threefold for me now. Firstly, most importantly, an unfit and grumpy Alfredo Morelos has absolutely no place in this team now. We have other options in the team that we didn't have before, and we aren't so desperate for just any version of him that we can get to plunk into the team. And we have my new favourite striker, Antonio Cholak, displaying all the attributes to get into and stay in the team and have goal threats from a number of areas on the pitch now. So he's not the only show in town like he was before. Secondly, he's in the final year of his contract, and that's got to have an impact on his longer term thinking, I imagine, which might then trickle into his overall attitude. I don't know if it's, I don't want to get injured. I don't know if it's, I want to try and force a move. I don't know if he's just getting lazy. I mean, there was some talk that he was taking the huff because Cholak was battering in the goals. I don't know if that's the case. He doesn't strike me as being that type of person. He was always very happy when Jermaine Defoe was scoring goals in the team and stuff, and they had a really good bond. So is it that? No, I don't know, who knows. But thirdly, he has a manager who just simply won't put up with that sort of garbage from anyone. And I have to say, I absolutely loved what Giovanni said last week, which went something like you know, as a person, it was tough, you know, the decision to drop him. As a person, it was tough, but as a manager, it was easy. And that really spells out the manager's thinking. It's so simple. Like, my job is to manage and do what's best for this team. In that respect, things are pretty clear cut in terms of what is and what is not on. Does it get difficult and awkward facing difficult people-related situations? Of course it does, yes. But when it's very, very apparent that decision is best for the team overall and the club, and probably the player, quite frankly, then it's very easy. And I just think that's brilliant and really just sets a marker down for the remainder of the squad to know that if you don't display the correct attitude and commitment that's required to make this club a success, it doesn't matter who you are, you're out of the squad until you can demonstrate the right attitude and the commitment. So brilliant and somewhat subtle from Giovanni, and I'll be really interested to see how Alfie reacts to this. It could be, quite honestly, folks, that by the time you get around to listening to this, that he might have already left. You know, because the transfer window's coming up here in what's that, 3 days' time. I guess we get to the end of the day on the 1st. So it could be a moot point, who knows? But, you know, I hope it's not, and I hope he's still with us, because a fit and attitudinally correct Alfredo Morelos is an absolute asset for this team, and we just all want to see that type of Alfie, not the type that obviously the club have been seeing this last wee while. So on to the game segment for this past week. And I'm not sure it really could have gone any better for us, could it? Wow, brilliant. Starting with Wednesday's monumental 1-0 win in Eindhoven, announcing Rangers' return to the Champions League group stages in some style, quite frankly. I'm not going to go through the entire game, but yeah, they had chances, and yes, they likely could have, should have scored before we did, but they didn't, and that's the name of the game. We had a dodgy 10 minutes at the very start of the game, which is just our typical usual slow start that I've talked about before, and then dominated the next 30. I thought we were brilliant actually for that 30 minutes in the first half, and then had a wee bit of a kind of ropey last 5 minutes or so of the first half. So I go into half time thinking, if that's what we can expect from them in the second half, then I'm getting more and more confident that we can do this. And I was saying that to some of the boys down in the States on the group chat that we've got. I'm getting a wee bit more confidence. Only 45 minutes to go now. And after a bit of a slower start to the second half, we grew into the game. And around, what was it, like 55 minutes or so, Tom Lawrence, what a find this guy's turning out to be, nearly produced the goal of the entire season, or the goal of the entire tournament at least, with a brilliant piece of dribbling, close control outside the box, and then taking it beyond. There must have been about 3 of their defenders before curling an absolutely brilliant shot that just whacked the underside of the bar. What a strike, and what a brilliant goal it almost was. And I was just dying for that to go in. It was one of those woof moments where you're right out of your chair. And after that moment, the belief is really skyrocketing, and we're in the team, and we're pressing higher and higher up the pitch as the second half progresses. And they started to make some mistakes coming out of defence, and then Malik Tillman capitalises on a mistake from their goalie and defender, and then passes it across to my man Cholak, who slots it home, and then there's just bedlam in the Gillen household at that point with just me and Leo here. And we almost made it 2 shortly afterwards, and it's all getting a bit too and froey towards the end. But in looking at the replays, without the stress of the in-game experience that we're having, I don't think we were hugely troubled overall. Certainly after we scored and we saw the remainder of the game out relatively comfortably, I thought it was just an amazing experience. The positives, the result and the performance, we were absolutely immense. And special mention for the return of Glenn Kamara. The Glenn Kamara that we all know and love. He was superb for the entire time that he was on, and it was just great to see him back and bossing it like he did. I was quite surprised actually when he got taken off. I didn't know if that was an injury related thing, or maybe a fitness thing, or tactical or whatever, but I was much more confident with him on the field. But really, really good to see him back. Negatives, there were some, I guess, some niggly bits and pieces during the game, when some of the subs, as I mentioned, could have been a wee bit more defensive in the second half. I thought, Giovanni was still kind of replacing a forward with a forward type thing, but that's just the nerves talking, to be very honest. There was really not too many negatives on a historic night for the club like that. The referee watch, I thought the referee had a good game. Yeah, the commentator, I think, said before the game, it was maybe in the early parts of the game, that he was a tough taskmaster, and he had also, I think it was the last World Cup that he had refereed up to, and including the semi-final, and there was talk about him refereeing the final this year. And as a result of that, yeah, the guy just seemed to breeze and communicate, more importantly, his way through the entire game. I remember being a wee bit aggrieved at the yellow cards that he gave to our players, but that's most definitely a blue-tinted glasses lens that I was watching through. The ref was in control, so for that he gets a strong 8 out of 10 for his performance. So what does that give us? As if we don't know, that gives us Champions League football for a start, and a brilliant group against Ajax, Liverpool and Napoli. I did share with some folks before that I would have loved to have drawn against Real Madrid, just in a competitive game, just to have the atmosphere at Ibrox and then go across to the Bernabeu as well. But instead, unfortunately for Real Madrid, they'll have to go and get all soiled and disgusting in the east end of the city while we host last season's finalists. And I saw something online, I think it was just the other day, maybe on the weekend, that said something like, we get to go to Napoli where Diego Maradona was immortalised. We also get to go to Amsterdam where Johan Cruyff was immortalised. And we get to go to Liverpool where John Lundstram was born. What a group. Just brilliant. And that just about sums it up. It's a brilliant group. We're absolutely back in the big time, folks. And we don't have long to wait. It's going to be essentially next week that we are starting our Champions League journey. And then I think it's essentially because of the shortened this half of the season, if you like, because of the World Cup. I think it's 2 games in a week of a break, 2 games in a week of a break, 2 games in a week, and then we'll know what our Champions League fate is, at that point. So not quite elongated through to kind of early December as it typically is. I think it's all done and dusted by early November for this season. So brilliant, just brilliant stuff. Our second game was Saturday's 4-0 demolition of Ross County at Ibrox with goals from John Lundstram, fresh from winning his appeal from the utterly stupid and crap red card that he was given by that idiot column last week, and then 2 from my man Antonio Cholak, and then 1 towards the end by Stephen Davis. Always great to see Davis score. It was quite honestly a stroll in the park from beginning to end, and we had 24 shots on goal to Ross County's 3 and enjoyed 72% of the possession. Looking at the Dundee United score from yesterday, the only thing I would say I'm a tad disappointed in is the fact that we didn't score more, and we were actually talking about that after the game itself as well. It should have been a higher score than it actually was, but that will come. These scores, I strongly believe, will come as the team continues to gel, because, again, we're 4 weeks into the season here. I was hoping Cholak would get his hat-trick, but he was taken off and given a well-deserved breather in the second half, and the only real talking point from the game, other than not scoring more goals, was the potential second yellow card for James Sands around midway in the first half. The referee could have easily given the second yellow for that, but I have to make the assumption here that he didn't, because one, he was miles away from the play because he just couldn't keep up the play properly, but he knew that the first yellow card he gave was utter stupidity on his behalf, and I mean on his behalf as in the referee. So, the detractors and naysayers and sensationalists are all up in arms about it afterwards, but the way we were playing, it likely wouldn't have influenced the score anyway, so everybody can just shut their face. He never got the second yellow card. We already got shafted the week before anyway and lost 2 points as a result, so maybe we're due one back anyway. Positives, another clean sheet, 4 really good goals scored, so we can't argue with that. When our negatives, slant, not many at all, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, but apart from maybe not scoring more goals, but credit to their goalie who had one of those games. I know he let in 4 goals, but he had a blinder. It was a solid and routine performance by us, and we move on. Referee watch, Don Robertson did okay. He set himself up for the headache stuff with his first booking of Sands, followed by the indecision on the second foul, but overall I thought he did all right and didn't make any real controversial decisions that I can recall. So because of that, he gets a 7 out of 10. 2 games this week. The first is tomorrow, Tuesday, with the Home League Cup clash against Queen of the South. And that one is a 2:45 Eastern Standard Time kickoff. That's 7:45 in the UK. And I expect we'll see wholesale changes through the team to give everyone a wee bit of a breather before a massive week for us, which includes Celtic, Ajax and Aberdeen all away. And so hopefully tomorrow some of the fringe players will come in and get some good valuable game time and take their chances and really force the manager's hand to make sure that he's not forgotten about them. And the second is the first Old Firm game of the season, away at Sharkhead on Saturday with a 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. That is 12:30 UK. And with the EastEnders doing something, if you believe what is said in the papers, more monumental than winning the World Cup, the Nobel Peace Prize, curing monkeypox and ending the war in Ukraine yesterday by beating a very poor Dundee United side 9-0. Apparently we're under more pressure now than we were before their game yesterday. Give me a break, man. If that's what they want to believe, then have at it. We'll see what happens on the game on Saturday. Bring it on. We have a great chance to manage the match and put in another masterclass performance and take the 3 points at Sharkhead on Saturday. There's nothing to fear from us going there and just letting everybody know who the best team in the league are. with us being 9 goals and 2 points behind, I'm gonna look for a solid 4 or 5-0 victory to us to make the league table look a wee bit more normal come later Saturday morning for us here on the west of the continent. Any sort of victory will do for me, and whatever comes after that in terms of bonuses and the goal difference changes, that would be ace as well. For RTV, another successful broadcast on the weekend. I didn't hear anything from anyone that there was any challenges at all. We didn't get shut down at the end of the game with 0 replays or thoughts of the commentary team like we did for the Hibs game the week before, so that's good. I didn't actually receive a response from RTV on the question that I posed them in relation to that from last week, but it was fine on Saturday, so long may that continue. Or maybe it's only for games that we don't win, or maybe it's for games that we don't control the broadcast on. I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll see this Saturday. For shout-outs, I wanted to start with actually a real-time story, and I say real-time because it's happening right now, and it's about NARSA Vice President Brian Campbell. And this one is a bit of a cautionary tale for all of our listeners. A few months back, Brian was going through some tests that showed up some evidence of cancer in his prostate. And now, so Brian has a history of this strain of cancer in his family, so he was very hyper diligent in getting other tests done and other doctors' opinions. And initially one of the doctors anyway, had said that the presence was within normal levels. Now, I didn't think there was such a thing as normal levels of cancer, so that seems like a stoter. Anyway, and just they would keep an eye on it and see him again in 12 months. Of course, that response was not cool at all for Brian or his family. And as it turns out, he was more than quite right in pushing it, as it prompted him to seek further doctors' opinions. And when push came to shove, the doctors commended him for pursuing it because it was actually worse than they had initially thought it was in his quest for the right answer. So, not to get everyone worried, but to fast forward to the end, Brian had his prostate removed last Wednesday. The surgery was very successful. The doctors were very, very happy with how that was, and he is now home and recovering with the help of Gaynor and his family and friends. In fact, here's a beauty. He was literally in recovery, or maybe actually literally even going through the surgery. No, I think he was maybe in recovery during the PSV game last week. And then when he woke up, the nurse asked him if they could get him anything, and he asked for his phone to firstly check the score of the game before phoning his wife Gaynor. Yeah, he checked the score first before calling his wife. Talk about staunch. And I am certain, knowing how big of a blue nose that Gaynor is, that she wouldn't have expected anything less anyway. And by the way, that's not even the half of it. In early May, Brian was going through some various appointments that he had to go through in preparation for where he is now, and they had a biopsy. I think it was a biopsy that the doctor wanted to organise for the 18th of May. And for many Rangers fans out there, you'll recognise the date of the 18th of May as being the Europa League final. And at the time, we were just about to go into our second leg of the semi-final against Leipzig on the Thursday. So Brian had politely said to the doctors, can we pencil it in for now, and I'll let you know for sure on Thursday. And sure enough, on Thursday, he informed the doctor, I'm sorry, the 18th doesn't work. I'm going to be out of country for a wee bit around that date, and we need a new date. And that is a 100% true story. As I said, staunch to the core. The cautionary part of the story, folks, though, is that if a young fella Brian's age, 47 years old, can go through this sort of journey, then any of us can. And I know Brian would want me to implore upon everyone, who's listening to this, to go get checked. Don't just take the doctor's word for it if your gut is telling you something different, and exhaust all the avenues open to you to ensure that you make the right decision for you and your family. It's so scary, this sort of stuff, especially when it happens to someone who's a big part of my life and a good pal. So Brian, from myself, Erin, Leo and everyone at NARSA, rest up, recover, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help, my friend. But yeah, very, very cautionary tale there, and good luck to Brian and the family on the recovery. So to provide a wee bit more good news on top of Brian's successful surgery news, I did want to let you know that as of last week, we officially had 10,000 downloads of this podcast. Yes, for the 88 NARSA weekly updates and the 7 interviews that we've broadcast, we've amassed 10,000 downloads. Now, I think that's only podcast app downloads via whatever app you use on your smart device, and it doesn't include, as I understand it, it doesn't include the watches on YouTube, so it might be a wee bit higher than the 10,000, but we do still broadcast for YouTube for folks that don't like to, or don't use the podcast apps, and we'll definitely continue to do that. But I just wanted to mention this significant milestone for us and say thank you very, very much to every single person who has downloaded and hopefully listened to the podcast since we started in December 2020. We're closing in on 100 episodes of this weekly update pod, and I'm very, very excited to hit that milestone, I don't mind admitting. And we will plan something cool for that particular show, I promise, and it won't be just me talking at you for that one at the very least. For NARSA 2023, I can officially confirm that it is 290 days from today and 41 weeks until Toronto Midtown Rangers Supporters Club host the biggest bash of the overseas Rangers year. 290 days, wow. And other than that, I don't actually have too much material updates to share for this week. Our next item on deck will be determining the event ticketing prices, and a lot of that is borne by the Walter Smith Grand Memorial Grand Banquet meal costs as well. So we have a rough idea of what that's going to look like now, so we can sit down and determine what the overall ticketing prices can be. Then I think Rosie and her team at the Holiday and Flight Centre will have what they need to get the all-in packages ready and out for sale, and we can put the rest of the stuff on sale around about the same time as well. So we're going to be spending some time on that next week, or this next week, I should say. Come on, Gary. And we should have more to share next week. I'm not saying they will be on sale by next week, but we'll certainly have an update and a progress status update to share for next week. On the comms front for this past week, last week Rangers announced a multi-year partnership with EA Sports, and the article on the website said Rangers FC are thrilled to announce a new multi-year partnership with EA Sports and the largest sports video game franchise in the world, FIFA. The biggest name in football gaming and esports, this fantastic new arrangement with EA Sports will bring multiple benefits to Rangers and their global fan base, not least having a fully licensed Rangers team within the upcoming EA Sports FIFA 23 title. Through this partnership, EA Sports will become Rangers' exclusive official video game partner. The club is also set to unveil several esports initiatives in the coming months, including international events and match day activities both within the fan village and the upcoming new Edmiston House. EA Sports will have an enhanced presence within the stadium and create unique content pieces that can be seen across our digital and social media platforms. Players of FIFA will also be able to experience authentic Rangers content throughout 2022-23 and future seasons. My understanding is that Ibrox is making a return. If you play on the FIFA platform right now, even if it's a home tie, it's not actually Ibrox. But this is a great one for me personally, because Leo likes to play FIFA on the Xbox, and we've been holding off. He's on FIFA 21 right now, and we didn't upgrade to 22, and we're just waiting on next month's version coming out, which I believe is the 30th of September is coming out for FIFA 23. So to know that Rangers will be there in all of our glory, and some of the graphics that I've seen on some clips on YouTube already have been just absolutely magic. So well done to the club for getting this one locked in, and really, really looking forward to seeing Rangers back on that international stage in the gaming world as well. On the memorabilia associated with the Rangers 72 film, I've been very delinquent on that this last wee while. I'm going to put that on my action list to do tomorrow night probably. I'm going to get in contact the main contact there and see what we can do about getting this out there. Because I've been delinquent on that one. Sorry, folks. But moving on swiftly, do you know one thing I was actually thinking about this past wee while, and I've no idea why, he said somewhat ironically, is whatever happened to VAR coming in earlier in the Scottish Premiership season. We were originally told it would be after the World Cup, and then it was announced that it would most likely be in around the second week of the season, which, as you know now, is a couple of weeks back. And then it's just went stone dead from a communications perspective, and I can't find anything about it now for anything that I search online. So I guess we'll get it when we get it. but it would be kind of nice to know if you're going to communicate something, actually follow through and finalise the communications, or at least give people some updates. Don't just go bloody cold and quiet. Anywho, on the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary front, we did indeed attend the Calgary Cavalry game this past weekend in what turned out to be a storm-ripped Calgary. A storm just absolutely blew through us on Saturday afternoon during the game. So the game was started and then it was delayed for ages, which, through no fault of my own, which made me drink way more beer than I planned to, which then made my conversation with Fraser Muir, who now plays with the Cavalry here but is on the injured list, it made my conversation with him on my way out all the more fuzzy. Yeah, okay. So that's 2 Cavalry games I've been to, and both times the weather has been absolutely rotten. So they might get one more chance, and if it's rotten at then I have to say I am done. So the good news is the team won 1-0, so that's a good thing, but we had to leave early because the bus was only contracted to be at the venue for a certain amount of time, so we had to jump on the bus, miss the end of the game. But by that point, I was more than ready to leave anyway, so that's not a bad thing. In part 7 of the folks who support, encourage, tolerate, create space for, and sometimes work on NARSA-related things in conjunction with your NARSA executive members, I am delighted to tell you that our very own communications director finally communicated with me to provide his sneak peek into how it all works for him in the background. So a wee bit of background on my working experience with Fraser Muir, of course, is who I'm talking about. It started, I think it was earlier this calendar year, when Fraser contacted me to directly express an interest in the open communications director role that was vacated last year. And we had a chat about it, and I was... And what I was hoping we could evolve the role into, and despite my vision, he was still interested, which is a great thing. So then Fraser went about getting his official nomination and second in club, and then was voted in via acclamation at the AGM in Las Vegas. And for our regular listeners, you'll know that Fraser's son and daughter were both married earlier this summer, not to each other, that would be weird, and he was proud as punch in telling us the stories of that. So family ties obviously run very deep for him, which is a great thing. So here's what Fraser said. Hi Gary and all my listeners out there. That's actually literally what he said. I am fairly new to the NARSA family and attended my first convention this past June in Las Vegas. What a gift for the eyeballs and ear canals. To see and hear all the lads and lassies in action was a sight to behold. This makes me even more proud to be part of it and be welcomed into the NARSA family. Regarding support, the family is key to my involvement. Often it's merely a dad thing, but I take it all in stride. I must give a shout out to my dearly departed dad at the young age of 62, over 20 years ago. Oh my word, I'm sorry to hear that. This makes me a 4th generation Gers supporter. If not for him, I would never have had such a passion for these black and red socks, nor the history behind them. Never involved with the awful sectarianism, he was always the one that said it was all about the football. But a win against our old firm rivals, there was nothing quite so sweet as giving the East End mob next day at work in Canada a right going over. I guess you could say being part of NARSA is very much down to him. Cheers, Dad. You still make me greet when I write this. Cheers. Acknowledging and still fervently loving your dad over 20 years after his passing is absolutely inspirational, Fraser, and I'm sure I'll be the very same about 20 years from now too. And what a first convention to go to, the biggest, one of the best ones we've ever had. Absolutely brilliant, Fraser. Thank you very, very much for sharing, and really looking forward to continuing to develop the communications portfolio with you over the coming weeks and months. So yeah, again folks, this is just a wee opportunity to give everybody a wee sneak peek about how things tick in the background for the people that help the whole NARSA machine keep moving. So we've just got me to go now, and I'll pop something together for next week's pod, and then we can wrap up this wee segment, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it to date. So that's going to do it for this week, my friends. As always, thank you very, very, very much for taking the time to listen. Please do share this with whomever you think might enjoy it, and we can keep the momentum going as we near in on our 100th show. And until next week, here's to progressing in the League Cup, and more importantly, smashing that mob in their own midden this coming Saturday. Until next week, folks, please do take care. All the very best. Cheerio.